Who's going to count me?
Jeremy.
All right, are we ready to go? Three, two, one. So, very good evening, everyone. Welcome to another conversation. Shalem is getting pumped for Growth Conference next week, and part of our preparation is we're talking about gardening, we're talking about agriculture, we're talking about ministry in agriculture, and learning how to do it God's way. And tonight we have our very special speaker, Brett Laing. He's going to share some interesting perspectives of can we call you an amateur gardener, Brett? Is that okay?
That's certainly okay, and definitely not professional, and bumbling around in many ways, and but nevertheless, yeah, got to be in it
Look,
to win it, so to speak, don't you?
and that's what we're saying. We've got to start somewhere, and he's on his journey, and that's exciting for all of us. And even for professionals like me who've been doing it a long time, I'm still learning, and I love listening to people. I love visiting everyone's garden. Can always learn something, and we're going to learn something tonight. We're going to learn his practical experience, and we're talking about wicking beds and square foot gardening, and that's something I've dabbled with, and I guess as principal said that I'm still using. So be very interested to hear what Brett's got to say. Just a quick reminder for everyone as Growth Conference is approaching next weekend, starting Friday night. We're pretty
Mm,
excited about it. Um,
yeah.
we're looking forward to seeing everyone there. We're hearing that the spots are filling up very quickly, and there's still plenty of space for everyone though. But get in there, get those bookings in because it's going to be a great event. We've got some really good initiatives, some things for the kids too to keep them interested and occupied. We've got some chooks, lots of good stuff anyway. So we're looking forward to seeing everyone. So yeah, get those bookings in. So let's just open with a prayer. Then I'm going to hand it over to you, Brett. So let's just bow. Heavenly Father, we thank you that we can have this time. We thank you that we have this opportunity and the resources. Thank you that we have this technology that we can meet together like this. And I just pray that you'll bless this time and be with Brett, as I know he's always keen to share, and he's a great character, and he's got some information for us and his own experience, and that's what we want to hear. But just give him a clear mind, help him to articulate what he wants to share, and what's important for us to know. So we thank you that you're in this, Lord. This is your will. You want us all to be blessed and to have abundant lives, and this is part of it, Lord, part of your plan for men, particularly in these days, as we look to restore what's been lost and even to some degree reverse the curse. So be with us now in a special way, Lord. Speak to us all, we pray in your holy name, Jesus. Amen. Okay,
Amen.
Brett, we look forward to what you got to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Well, hello, everybody. Yeah, it was quite interesting. Benji asked me quite a while ago to sort of, I think it was the previous growth conference to talk about some of the things here, which is our garden here, which is quite modest and so on, but nevertheless, and I sort of balked at it and so on, but finally the time has come. So yeah, what was interesting is that I really wasn't in the right headspace and also didn't have the time to put aside and just contemplate a title and a bit of a bio and so on. So I asked my lovely wife Jo to do that for me, and she came up with the title. What was it, darling? It was something along the lines of "Life Lessons from an Amateur Gardener." Now, I felt quite intimidated by that thing because I thought, oh, I'm going to have to think of all these life lessons and so on, you know. And she was drawing off the sort of things that I would do as I went into the garden and came out and so on and so forth. And I couldn't remember them and so on. So we changed the title and it changed again from the one there to Wicking Beds and Square Foot Gardening, Our Adventure. So I guess that does cover off on a few things there. So you get some technical stuff. See this as really just an introduction, perhaps a little taster about things. It's not exhaustive, otherwise you would have hours and hours and hours of it. But yeah, and but nevertheless, maybe as things go, I guess I'll offer not what I'd call life lessons necessarily. Often they're spiritual lessons, which I guess both things go together. So it might be a little bit higgledy-piggledy, not in terms of its structure, but in terms of its delivery. So please forgive me for that. Hopefully it's entertaining, and then off we go. All right. As Joe put in the bio, we live on a hills block. Now, I'm just going to get this thing working here. There we go. Everyone's got to sort of have these. There you go. That's Google Maps from, I think, 2023. So that is actually our property borderline that you can see there. And what do you notice about that?
Got a pool.
Anyone? Yep, go on, Jeremy. What do you notice about
I
this?
see a lap pool there.
Yeah, that looks like a lap pool. It's actually bigger than that, but it doesn't look like it's got laps on it. You're quite right.
You got a
Can
big
you guys
house then.
see it? Sorry?
You got a big house then.
It looks big. Well, it's not that big, but yeah. Can you see my cursor? Oh, there we go. Can you see that now?
Yeah.
Yep, good. Okay, so yeah, that's the pool and so on. Is there anything else anyone notices about this property here? It was
Trees.
described. Yeah, go on.
Trees.
Trees. Yes, thank you. So we didn't choose this place. We chose it because it was a place that was available within the price range, basically. I wanted to go further bush. Joe didn't. And ironically, if ever you had a conversation with Joe more recently, but yeah, this is as far out as we could go. And it wasn't chosen for gardening, let me assure you.
Mm.
And so where, again, I'm going to, well, why not ask Jeremy? Let's make this interactive. That's my personal style that I work best with, I guess. Can you see where you think the garden might be? Where would you put it in that? Here?
Where's where's your aspect? Where's your north?
That's north up the top.
That's north.
Yep, it's north pretty much up the top.
Yeah, like where you
See the
pointed out.
tree? That's afternoon sun.
Yeah, so where you pointed out, just between the house and the pool, there probably looked like a logical place. Nice
That's
sunny
right.
spot out there. Yes.
Yep. So curiously, I started it out the front, and you'll see this a bit later. But yeah, we were struggling to find somewhere sunny. That doesn't get sun till about 11 o'clock midday, and it finishes at about 3. So
Mm.
yeah, so we ended up coming down here, but you'll see
Mhm.
that in a little while. So we'll come back to our journey a little bit later, but just to set the context, I guess. So let's have a look at. Oh, sorry. Here we go. I didn't actually look ahead. So that was again. Did you know that Google Maps has your street view going back some years? So that's sort of interesting, I reckon. But yeah, that was 2010, as you can see there. That's pretty much as we bought it. There were some trees out the front here, but you have got sunlight here. I don't know what time of day it is, but that's sort of as good as it gets, I guess, in some ways. That's 2014, 4 years later. Not much has changed. So we've been there from 2000 and when? 2008, and nothing much has changed. And then we've come up to, if I can get that working, to 2023, which is what we've got now. Again, can you see what I can see here, Jeremy and everybody else? What's that showing us? That's
Shows a bit of
it's about
progress.
midday, I think. Sorry,
I see progress.
you've seen progress, and you also can see a lot of shade, can't you?
Yeah, a bit of shade there.
It hasn't. Yeah, that bit down the bottom there is not too bad, but this one. Okay, this is where we started because I thought, oh, okay, I don't know, I just wanted to grow something, I guess, and bought one of these things from Bunnings, the metal box and stuff like that, and that was our first crop, wasn't it, Joe? Yeah, Joe's just beside me for those. Yeah, so that was it. That's not a wicking bed or anything like that. It's just a standard old thing. Those speckled lettuces are from the neighbour across the road, and so on. And again, that's what it looked like down the bottom there before things changed. And then I don't know exactly why, but I think I saw a Gardening Australia show, and it had this wicking bed thing because I wanted to expand things a bit. And so you might ask, what's a wicking bed? And it's a raised garden bed, and there are certain advantages to having a raised bed. It's got a reservoir of water at the bottom, keeps the soil above it moist through capillary action. I'm not a scientist or a gardener and so on, but essentially we've all heard that, I think, from school days. It goes up through the growing medium from a reservoir in the soil. So if you have a look at that graphic there, you can see at the bottom, that's the reservoir, if you like, at the very bottom there. You can put various types of gravel or things like that at the bottom. There's so many different sorts, aren't there, Jeremy, of wicking beds.
Blue
And
metal.
then sorry,
Blue metal.
blue metal's apparently the most desirable one because it's got some minerals and things in it. And I'm told that if you have, this is different. Scoria is something you really can't get in the West, as far as I know. It's an Eastern States thing. Apparently, it's I think ground up bricks or something like that. It's It's quite a different product than what seems to be available over here. But yeah, I've gravel that you'll see a bit later. I'm told that has got a very high iron content and it may cause some problems. But you'll see later that most of my stuff's not that. This is just another way of showing you what happens. The water comes in a pipe at the top, comes down here, and it goes through a pipe, and that's got holes in it or whatever. You could use ag pipe and so on. So some of these terms I'm not going to explain in detail, but you sort of get the idea of the principle. It all fills up to this point here, and I'll show you a few other things, but there'll be a little outlet. Oh, there, it's on this side, yeah, an outlet hole, so it doesn't go too much because you don't want to go too high. You'll just have waterlogged growing medium. And then the plants, this water just seeps up through using capillary action, which draws the water up, and then the plants can access it. Of course, in the very early days, when you've got seeds or small seedlings, there's not much water at the top. So you're going to have to water at the top as well until they get established, and then you have less water usage as time goes on. Most of it being supplied from this water reservoir going up as the arrows show. And there are certain sorts of benefits from this. So yeah, the question is why? So advantages. Now I haven't got the disadvantages, and there are some disadvantages that I've sort of discovered. So I'll probably mention them off the top of my head, but they're usually raised beds. So anyone that's got a raised bed, it's easier to tend, particularly as you age. Things like that. Bending down on your knees and so on, I find quite difficult. And it hurts and it can injure and so on. But when they're raised up, it's so much easier to manage. And you can keep the weeds and grass out, particularly the first crop, because you've got to get some soil or growing medium in. And usually that's got no weeds in it. So that's awesome. I'll show you later what's developed after, I think, 2 years. Rabbits can't get in and other things, but rats can, I can tell you. That's a problem. You only have to fill up the reservoir once a week. In summer, it's usually once a week. Depends what you've got growing, I guess, how dense it is and what their water requirements are. And that's really the reason why we went to wicking beds, because we don't have the retic. We're only allowed to water with automatic reticulation in Perth twice a week. So tell me, what would survive with 2 waters a week when we're talking veggies? I reckon it's pretty minimal. So you need something, to be able to legally look after things. And so we wanted as it says there, more constant soil moisture level and without top watering as much. And it actually uses less water too. There's no wastage. Well, there's very little wastage at all, because if you put all your straw or whatever else you call it, what's the right word for that, Jeremy? Mulch. Mulch, that's it.
Surface mulch.
Thanks for that. Yeah, so the mulch, that obviously reduces evaporation and keeps things moist as well. But yeah, you've got stuff coming up from the bottom there. And well-hydrated plants are much more resilient to hot weather. And that's what I notice. I sort of pamper them at times if I've got the time, but I notice if I haven't watered for a day or two, particularly the very, very soft things like your lettuces and stuff like that, that are quite prone to not going so well in the heat. They survive really well and they thrive, in fact. Now, less water usage, I think I've repeated myself there. And you can grow them on any surface. And this is an interesting point. If you're talking urban sort of environments and you're talking very small, you can start off with one garden bed and it can be on, the outside on the artificial turf. You don't need to till the soil and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's a really important thing. I know when I talked with Benji probably a few years ago, he was saying, yeah, we want an urban perspective at times. So this isn't really going to directly address that. But that's one of the big things is being able to find a decent location to get the right sun and so on and shelter from wind and so on. But certainly space and certainly am I going to be able to cultivate that ground that we've got. And in Perth, it's just sand, as you know, pretty much. And the retic, I've mentioned that problem. So, types of wicking beds. This is on the first video that I saw. They talked about getting old apple boxes and putting some builder's plastic in there with a pipe, so ag pipe I think they used or something like that, and and then putting some scoria as it mentioned, or you could put those other things that I mentioned at the bottom, and so on from there. So yeah, I did do that. I was inspired with that. Um, we're going to also mention what other options there are. If you heard of those things, no one's going to be able to speak, but yeah, IBCs they are, intermediate bulk containers. And as
Can I
you can
just
see,
butt in there, Brett, for a
yeah, go.
second? I've got a whole bunch of them to give away or
Oh, really?
donation for Shalem. If yeah, we use them a lot. So I've got a lot of them.
Right.
If people want them, anyone listening here,
Yeah,
just
that's a
have
good
to make a
offer.
donation to Shalem and you can help yourself.
Yeah, because they're about $80 or thereabouts each, I think
Thanks,
you can buy
Jeremy.
them. Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry, thanks, Benji. Yeah, so no, and they're very useful, and there's lots of benefits to those things, even if you don't have a wicking bed set up. But you do need to make sure you got drain holes. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, you can isolate things. I understand that blueberries are often grown in these things, Jeremy. Is that correct? Not
Right.
commercially, of course, but
Don't know.
yeah, apparently, because you can adjust the soil quite, make it a more acidic soil, which they need, I believe. So there's just
Mm,
things like that. I've heard of people doing that. Also heard of people putting ice on their blueberries to get the temperature down like they need to,
mm.
yeah, around the soil area, which again, you wouldn't do on a commercial basis, but if that's what you're struggling with and trying to manage in your own home. And here's a commercial wicking bed, one of them. If you have a look at that, it looks quite nice, doesn't it? Can you notice a few things about it? It's got
Expensive.
some, sorry?
It's expensive.
It is. That's exactly why I put that in there. It's very expensive. It looks quite nice. It's well built. It's Aussie made and all that kind of stuff. And you'll notice that all that, hang on, we've now done away with some of that aggregate or whatever you want to call it, the coarse materials at the bottom. They've got these canisters, if you like, and those little squares there are actually little they're funnels, if you like. Well, sorry, if you like. So they're things that go into the water, and you put. In this particular company recommends perlite, which is a bit like. Oh, can you explain that to me, Jeremy? What's perlite made out of? I haven't had enough time to research it.
It's basically superheated rock. So I'm not quite sure what rock it is, but it's a bit like popcorn. They
Yeah.
just superheat it, and the same with vermiculite. It's the same thing. It's just superheated
Is it?
type of rock. Yes.
Okay, I was wondering what the difference was. Yeah. Okay, and you put that in there, and that then wicks, if you want to call it that, the soil up. You can't see my hands so much, but yeah, soil up into the, and then it comes in contact with the growing medium, and off you go. And that's also, if you're looking at, it's not black plastic anymore. It's some sort of liner to stop the water going out. And there's the cassette that you can sort of, and you can see also the liner that's surrounding it for the water to build up there. But this is another one. It's called a food cube, and this is a different. It's very similar in the sense that again those holes are little, and you'll see this a bit later. In fact, you'll see it there. Can you see those things there end up being filled with growing medium, or it could be vermiculite, I guess, or perlite or whatever. That moves into the water reservoir down the bottom there, and then the soil's prevented from going in there by those plastic sheets and so on. There's a bit more to it there because I'm going to explain in more detail, would you believe, a little bit later. So yeah, that's where I thought I was starting. That was our boxes that we used. So we're starting this journey. And that was that we didn't take photos for the purpose of displaying it to people or anything. This is all about the trying to work out where the sun is. So I'm taking these shots to work out where's that sun going to be and what can I do about it and where can I put things and so on. But you can see we've ended up with four of them. Curiously enough, these two up the back were done by the design I mentioned with the black plastic, and these ones here are IBCs, but I thought I'd do that to make them look nice. And I think we did that, got to four, the grand total of four beds after attending a conference. What was it called again? Yeah, Cultivate conference run by a number of people, including by Eastwood, which is Rod Bailey, Desley, and so on. And that inspired me to actually plant more, again on the wicking bed concept. So here we go in a bit more detail. We're going to talk about these particular things. So these building processes, if you like, are apply to both a a wicking bed with a liner and also an intermediate bulk container. So I've mentioned all this stuff. Pipe, I've actually explained all that earlier. So we'll just show, the bit I didn't mention was a geotextile fabric. I'll show you that in a minute. Growing medium we've mentioned as well. So there you go. This is from our place. We've now graduated, if you like, to let me just do this. Okay, we've graduated to using that thing, the growing bed, and now using that as a wicking bed instead of just simply pouring water on the top of it and letting the plants die, I think was what was happening. And you can see in here a little bit. So this I've now graduated to from using PVC, which I was a bit concerned about leaching and chemicals associated with that. Now that may or may not be a risk, but I was uncomfortable with that. And also, I've moved from using well, the ag pipe and a PVC pipe to this water safe tube, if you like, or pipe. And you can tell it's water safe stuff because it's got the blue on it. And I understand the irrigation piping is got green on it, Jeremy, and so on. Is that
Well, you
right?
get blue, red, all kinds of things.
Really? Is there a difference in their water safety or?
No, I think
Oh, really?
they're all toxic.
Oh, really? Well, it's
I'd
as
be,
water safety as it gets, safe as it gets, I
yeah,
guess.
Brad, I'd be more concerned about the lining there as far as chemical contamination. I don't know if they're plant safe or what
That
how they
that
work.
is as best I've discovered some more stuff more recently. So maybe it's not as good as what I would like, but I use the PVC as I mentioned. It leaches chemicals. I reckon deteriorates over time as well.
Yeah.
I'll answer that point in a moment. And deteriorates over time, so it gets all fragile. That's what I
Mhm.
found when I got this stuff out. Um, so I've used this one. It's EPDM. I haven't got the actual full name for that, but my understanding there are different formulas within this, but it's considered foods drinking water safe. So, for instance, I think they might use that for lining. They line dams and things.
And
So,
rainwater tanks.
yeah, exactly. So it's as good as it gets. So no, I'm not comfortable. I reckon just actually this is something I was going to say before. The best place to grow food is in good soil. There's lots of reasons for that, I'm sure. We can talk about electricity, which is a bit on the edge, but things like that. We can talk about actually, avoiding all these potential chemical leachings and so on from plastic and so on. But that's my reality, and I'll show you. There'll be a slide a little bit later that might sort of, I could have just built a bed, I guess, but again, how are we going to water it and so on? So it's sort of the best. I still think it's probably better than the stuff you buy in the shop that's got all the chemicals on it and stuff. And I think that's
Yep.
that's part of my rationale for this. What do we got here? Yeah, I've mentioned the pipe to the reservoir area, talked about that. Safe. I've put safe there. Now, the other part to this is obviously there you can see we've got a pipe, we've got a T-piece down the bottom because it's over-engineered, if you like. That has two pipes coming out to make sure it's evenly spread. The reality is I probably don't need all of that. I think it probably runs through things a lot quicker than I realized. Now, there's another part to this that's in the same picture but zoomed up. There's this little thing here which you can see there, and that's an outlet valve. But it's not just a straight out valve that you might have noticed on the earlier slides. What it is, it's got some other fittings on the end of it, which then allows you to decide what water level you want things to be at. Um, so yes, yeah, I got a bit more detail. I had to drill holes, if you like, make a big hole in the wood or the metal or the plastic to allow that to come out. And then you attach this tank access. It's directly attached to either the IBC. It's got seals. You can see it's got rubber seals there, and yeah, or to the liner. So that's where you attach it. And it's sort of loosely fitted through the bits of wood or whatever it is that you've got as an outer covering. Something I learned, this is a bit of experience, I guess. I put this thing, you might have noticed I had the inlet up, say, closest to us at the bottom there, and right at the other end, it's 2.2 meters. I've got the outlet quite invisible to me, so I can't see when the water's overflowing. So, note to self, in future, put that at the same side as you're filling the water. And I haven't filled it up yet. I dug it all out at any point because I could do that, but it's a bit of a job to do that. So it's 2.2 by 1.3 or something. So a fair bit of stuff in there. Mentioned that. Oh, also make sure you put a bit of fly wire over the inside bit because if you've got, say, some sort of blue metal or whatever in there, which it would be in this design, that can clog it up. Again, it might not be a huge issue, but still, just put a bit of fly wire or something over the end just to stop that from happening. Here's another diagram showing you because you're thinking, okay, so what sort of dimensions would this be? Do you make it, And so this one here from Green Life Soil, which is an organic or predominant, almost all of their product is organic. Certainly that's their aim, as best they can make it organic produce there. And it's a gardening centre, I guess you call it. So with all sorts of things for your garden, so soil and so on and so forth. So it's 200 millimeters, they reckon, is about what you should have for your the aggregate and so on at the bottom. And it's also and about 300 millimeters is the capacity for the computer reaction to still be working. So they're good dimensions. I think they vary maybe by 50 millimeters in anything that I've read. Again, Jeremy, what can you offer any thought on that? I think that's the stuff they work on, 200 and 300.
Oh, yeah,
Is it
more better.
a more better? What? Tell me what. I'm all for the reservoir part.
No, no. Look, roots will go as far as they'll look for food and water.
Yeah.
So, insulation, the deeper it's going to be cooler. But if
Mm.
you've got a mulch layer, no, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine.
That's what I think. What it is this will end up dry up here. I think that's the thinking.
But like that's what the mulch layer's for.
True.
That like you said it before. I mean, that your summer heat is going to dry out that surface, and that's what mulch does. Bare
Mm.
ground is the enemy of food production.
Mm. Mm. Good point. Thank you. And these are things, yeah, and you would need reminding of it if you like too. Have a look at this. This is, again, I did this to know an IBC isn't exactly those dimensions. Its total, I think, is about half, I think, is about 500. It's roughly or 450 or something like that. I haven't gone out and measured it to double check. So you can't really put 20 and then have enough soil to work. So the figures are slightly different than that. So as you can see, it's about 17. But that's my aggregate, as you can see there. Um, I've been told that the best to do would be between 5 and 10, probably 7, and blue metal will be the best as well because it avoids any of this, the iron content, as I mentioned, and also has some nutrients in that. So yeah, I've mentioned all of that stuff as I've been going through. So yeah, that's just another picture of the same thing. Here
Is
we
that
are.
just, excuse me, Brett, is
Yeah,
that just washed gravel?
it's become, yeah, basically, yeah. But it's not completely. I was just gone off to the garden centre and said,
Yep.
can I have, a scoop or a couple of scoops of that and estimated how much we'd use. And I think that's about a third of a cubic metre or something, I think, is a scoop.
They call it pea gravel or
Yes,
washed gravel or something, don't they?
it's pea gravel. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pea gravel in this case. I've also got some cracked gravel versions of it. Depends
Yeah.
what you can buy and how. I wanted really small stuff. But I just couldn't seem to find it. I didn't know where to source it, by
I
contacting
think
people.
if that's cracked, if you crack that stuff, you find there's probably a high aluminium content in there,
Oh,
which would
really?
not be ideal.
Oh, great. This is good advice. Thank you. This is an interactive session.
Well,
That's
that's the
great.
basis of bauxite, which is
It is,
aluminium.
isn't it?
Yep.
Exactly right. I don't know if I've got any that have got those in it. No, they're not cracked per se. Oh, that one might be. I can't really zoom it up though. Um, but yeah, okay. Well, that wouldn't be ideal at all. I've only got two of them now, but this is for new people. Yeah, so the blue metal would be the go. And I'm
Yep.
told this place, if you're in Perth, um, I'm told it's up at there's a particular place you can ask me later anyway, if you want to know where you can probably get that. Maybe I need to change that, Jeremy.
Oh, let's think. Have you been growing things?
Yeah.
Everything's fine?
Oh yeah, I'm not dead.
Okay. Well, the thing
I
about
might be getting Alzheimer's though.
aluminium's toxic to roots, but if you've got lots of organic matter,
Oh
that'll
no,
buffer to the aluminium and it'll tie it up. So
it grows well. Yeah.
that's where humus and organic matter is really good.
Right. Yeah, I find these actually work really well.
Yep.
Um, And you can see there, it's just another, that's me working out. And you notice too, you can actually then scrape it all and make sure it's level. And if you put the water in, lo and behold, it's a perfect level. So you don't need to get any spirit levels out or anything like that. You'll
Mm.
know just by looking at it whether it's on the level. And that part you do need to be level. The other part should be level as you can get it for these sort of beds. But yeah, it's the top's critical really to have an even moisture content, I guess, in your growing medium. And there's just another shot. Now, this stuff I mentioned, geotextile fabric. So this stuff here sounds very technical, but what it does, it allows the water to come up, if you like, or through. In this case, up. They use it under roads and stuff apparently, and that's to let the water go down, I guess. But it stops the soil from going down because otherwise you're going to end up with all the soil migrating and filling up your reservoir area, which wouldn't be good. You do need a certain amount of space in there for water to just accumulate, because if you have it totally filled up, you're not going to have much water in there. It'll just be like having a standard garden bed with rocks at the bottom.
Brett, can I just
Yes,
ask a
go. Yeah.
question?
Yes.
Where can you buy these geotextile fabrics?
Good question. In fact, that is such a good question because I think it's there you go. That's the next one. And I
Oh,
appreciate that because yeah, it's Bunnings. I bought them at Bunnings, but I'm told recently, did I speak to the other one? Yeah, I spoke to what's his name? What's his name? Anyway. And
Mark Selby.
Mark, yeah, Mark Selby.
right.
Selby, yeah, he buys it for about I think $100 for I think 50 meters of it or something like that. Whereas I paid $40 for about 5 meters. So yeah, there are cheaper sources of this. But yes, you can buy a bigger amount and you can buy it at Bunnings. It's no problem.
Okay.
Certainly starting off. Yeah. Yep. Now the growing median we're going to discuss later. I'm going to get into that a bit more. So this particular one here, what is going on here? Ah, the food cube. There we go. Here's the price on that. 475 plus delivery. So we've got the one previous, which was 1,060, and that's 1650 by 910. This one is about 1050 square, the usable amount. It's 1150 millimeters on the external side of it. But if I've got it here, yes, there we go. I'll show you a couple of things on that. Whoops. Sorry, this has just gone and done something funny there. If we have a look at that, and I might be jumping the gun here. I think I've got another slide, but I can't look at it now. It's got quite a lot of features on this that I found really useful. I realise it's expensive though. And anyway, to talk about that too, I did cost it at some point. I think the IBC, depending on what you get it for, let's say that's $80, $40, $60 for a cut one. They're $80 for a cut one if it's pre-cut by people and so on. And add the other things in. I think it was in the 200 and something dollars to set one up because you've got to buy all those other different components I've mentioned. And this is $500 plus delivery. But yeah, delivery is a bit funny because they make me in Melbourne. I didn't pay delivery, I don't think, when I bought them, but you can't buy them that way. But looking on the website the other day, it had something about picking them up at Perth Airport for free. So I don't know. So let's say it's $500 plus, maybe up to $600 or something like that. But it has a lot of features. Those round holes there are what you can put a frame on. These things here, you can tie things down with. So you can use this and you can slot other things in there, which then allows you to put a netting around or a shade cloth and stuff like that. There's the fill hole and there's the outlet valve, which you adjust to get the levels right and so on. And it's pretty durable. I think it's guaranteed for 10 years and so on. And there's the stuff I've mentioned before. So there we are. We've started to fill the cones up. We've got the water in the bottom. You can see what's going on there. And you can see the levels. And off we go. Another feature of this particular product, the food cube, is that you can put pipes, you can join more on. So you can make multiple ones, which I've done. You'll see that a bit later. And again, you can put trellises on there and so on. So it's actually really versatile for people that don't know what they're doing, if you like, or that want to expand a little bit of what they're doing. Again, it's just a big investment though. So it's just something to consider before
Brett,
purchase.
did
Yeah,
you
go
say
for it.
did you say you've got one of these? Is that
I've
your
got
garden?
I've got a lot. That's not my garden. No, that would be very impressive.
There's some dollars there, I can tell you.
No, baby, that's not my garden. There are some dollars there. I don't know if they offer any discounts for that. What they've been doing is putting it into the urban environment. So community gardens, awesome for community gardens. Again, if you're looking there, there's wheelchair access, for instance, with raised beds. People can come along on that or something that's paved, and they can be a part of the gardening experience. You can't do that in a wheelchair with something that's ground level. People are
Mm.
completely excluded from that unless there's some tools. But again, I think it'd be very difficult to maintain a garden like that. So yeah, community gardens, on tops of skyscraper roofs and things,
Yeah.
um, all sorts of stuff. I mean, I'm not sort of going to show you all of that stuff, but it's amazing to see. One of the other things, again, with wicking beds, um, if you think about some of the situations in the islands, as we call it, in the Pacific or wherever, they have sometimes they have really beautiful volcanic soil. I realize that, but sometimes they just have coral, type sand and so on. You can't grow anything in that, I would imagine. Where are you going to get the stuff? So if you've got something that's encased, if you like, whatever form, and these are stackable too, I might add. You can stack multiples up, and they just fit beautifully. And it's a wonderful Australian design and produced product. I just love it. Yeah, they've shipped them off to, I think, Kiribati or something like that, and they're growing fresh produce there to supplement their other food. Again, which would be horrendously expensive. So yeah, but you can see you can put lots and lots of these things all in a row. It's critical to get them level. Critical to get them level. Otherwise, you're going to end up at one end, it's going to be not overflowing, but quite full. And the other end could end up being quite empty. Oh, there's the close-ups. You can see some of the things that I've mentioned. You can see there quite plainly there's a ability to clip things under it. And again, a frame, you can buy these frames. They're not overly cheap. I'm looking at ways of making that a bit cheaper. I bought two of them because of their expense, but they're invaluable to be able to keep out the bugs. One of the biggest things that I've found to be a problem. I did make some up myself out of PVC. Again, I can't imagine there'd be much leaching there. They are cheaper, but unfortunately, PVC doesn't last and it's not quite as sturdy. So I may have to sort of transition across to those. You can, yeah, you can see the trellis and so on. How much time we got? I'll be boring people out of their brains now. It's a lot of detail I realise I'm giving here, but I guess it's so you can go and do it yourself. That's some of the things. Now things are changing at our place. We've got one of those wicking beds, the commercial ones here. We bought, I think, how many did we buy? Was it one or two, or was it seven? I can't remember now. And this was sadly Joe's dad died, um, and it allowed us to have, with a small inheritance that we had there, to be able to finance some of this stuff. And so yeah, we've got garlic in. Actually, no, we did bought seven, didn't we? We've got garlic in there. You can see the IBC as it was there. And again, we've got, so yeah, we bought the five it was, I think, initially. And this is the spot where that original garden bed was. And again, I've got all this set up so that it's as perfectly level as I can get. Again, that was my way of doing it. There's all gravel and stuff in here to be able to achieve that. So it doesn't settle in that, I presume. And I had to convince Joe, yes, that we wanted to buy more. And so there's another one that was set up there. You can see plants growing there. You can see garlic there. And you can see this square. They're like these squares, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. And look, that's a great crop. Looks awesome, doesn't it?
Oh, well done.
It does, yeah. But the problem is you can see, look at this shadow. That's
Yeah.
about 9 o'clock in the morning, I think. And then it gets shadow again and so on. Anyway, this is me working downstairs. You saw those beds down the bottom. This is a nighttime picture because I was working late into the night on this. And this is me. And look, this is something to point out. I know Rod talked about why do you have garden beds? It's to grow stuff. I mean, that's what it is. But there's certain things that go with growing things that are wonderful. And so the neighbours saw that I needed to get something level, and he'd offered for those original ones you saw. He offered his laser level to be able to get this, and I thought, oh no, I can just do it myself, and I did do it, and it was fine. But then when I got to this, when we decided to expand even more, um, I'm going, I have to have a laser level. There's no way you can do that with a spirit level. There's absolutely no way. So I set up, I don't know if it's called a jig or whatever, but something to be able to screed on, um, and borrowed the neighbour, um, a different neighbour actually, because he'd had to give his back to his work. That's where it belonged. But the guy next door, he offered, yeah, two I could choose from, high-end ones too, like Bosch and all this sort of stuff. And so it was invaluable. I couldn't have done this, as cheaply, if you like, without the neighbours. And on that point as well, I remember again, this is about people that we meet, our neighbours. They're beautiful people. We have beautiful neighbours. And this guy went there, and I had something in my hand, and I walked. He was working outside, and I said, "Oh, can I?" And as soon as I said that, his response was yes. He didn't let me finish the sentence when I wanted to borrow and use his vice and stuff like that. So yeah, they're just lovely, lovely people. Anyway, and look what we put on all that. There's another 9 wicking beds of this particular design, and there we are with the growing medium in it, and so on. So you've got no plants in there yet, obviously, but we're on our way. And you'll
Brett,
notice here, yeah,
you've done very well to convince Joe to do that.
yeah, I have indeed. Well, do you know why we did this? Again, it comes back to Rod's why. So there's a few. I might as well mention that now. Why would you do this? Well, Joe she's got some autoimmune issues, and so she discovered what she calls the protocol. There's more to it. What's the name of it all?
It's the autoimmune recovery.
Autoimmune recovery program. Sounds very much the Nedley recovery DARP as well. In any case, and that very much focuses on fresh and organic. So we're buying organic food. Now, organic food's reasonable quality and so on, but some of it isn't so good. And we thought, well, this is costing a lot of money. Why don't we grow our own? And that's when we decided to do that. And the quality is exceptional when you grow your own. I mean, it's just very, very different. You cut it and you eat it within minutes, generally speaking. And so, yeah, so that was the rationale to upscale as much as we possibly could. Notice the sun again. I don't know what time it is. Maybe it's 10 o'clock or something like that. But this is the only place, as you saw from the original, there's no other place really apart from that spot you identified, Jeremy, which is only a small space to be able to plant things. It's out the front. Now we come to square foot gardening. I've got to pay tribute to this guy. Apparently, Mel Bartholomew, you would know him, Jeremy, and maybe others do. He had a goal, and his was to end world hunger. This is also of a square foot foundation that's been established. And I just see these as wonderful Christian principles as well. They've got, I'm going to read this to you. The mission of the Square Foot Gardening Foundation, articulated by Mel Bartholomew, the inventor of square foot gardening and founder of the Square Foot Gardening Foundation. This is from a quote from their book. It's a tall order, but one we're already tackling 1 square foot at a time. It's what it's about, isn't it? It's not about masses necessarily. It's about one person. It's about 1 square foot to achieve something as grand as ending world hunger. And I just take my hat off to them. And his background was he was an ex-army military efficiency expert, and he thought there's a better way to increase yields and reduce gardening workloads. 2 really important things, because what happens if you've got too much time that have to spend there, all of a sudden you don't do it. I'll show you an example of that later. And their focus is on planting, spacing, weed control, and soil. And I've taken quite a while with the first part, haven't I? And these are their principles. I'm only going to cover a couple of them, but plant densely, don't waste space, grow up. So trellises and things like that. Use Mel's mix, which is the growing medium, not garden soil. And it's not about wicking, but it's applied in that way particularly. It's just a raised bed is where they've started. Do it close to your home so you don't have to walk too much. Grow shallow. Well, you only need 6 inches using the old terminology. You don't need fertilizer, according to him. Not too sure about that one, but nevertheless, they use the organic materials. Keep the aisles between them, be narrow, be stingy with seeds, plant in squares, 30 centimetres or 1 foot. Rotate crops, which is something they learned in the agricultural revolution, as I recall, but that's important as well. So, right, densely and in squares. There's my squares. I measured that 30 centimetres. That was for me, I think. I didn't do it for any particular other purpose. And so what I used there were trellis, what are they called? Things from Bunnings that are quietly, what are they called? Yeah, trellises, where they're quite tight together. I pulled them apart and nailed them together. And I don't even know if I had to lattice, thank you, a lattice, and use those. Then I thought I'll be better to do them a little bit differently. You'll see a bit later, but this is probably the go-to because the principles he says is have a permanent thing there. Don't just use a string line or anything like that. It aids with your spacing, and he reckons you've got to have it there and not move it. So yeah, I guess once you've planted, you can pull them out. And this is an example of what you can do. So small plants, you can put even more than that in. That's only showing 4 per. The No, sorry, that's 8. That's 16. Sorry, the little dotted line is just an imaginary line. This is the square foot, is the blue outline. So I've never planted it quite that densely. Radishes, I think I can get away with doing that, but other things tend to crowd each other. Or 9 per squares. This is all just depending on the size of your plants and so on, and you can work out what works best there. And I've found that, and there's an example, a graphic, if you like, of that. So a tomato, they're saying 1 per square. I'm thinking this year I'll make it even less, probably for disease purposes and things like that. Yeah, that's one of the things. I just have, because there's disease, you can't escape it really. The tomatoes I've found. But anyway, this is the guide with using those principles. A broccoli could probably get away with. A cauliflower, I don't think a cabbage you can. But certainly your lettuces looks, 4 per square can do it. I wouldn't go 2 cucumbers in one, but you probably can if you send them off onto a trellis properly. And some of the carrots you can get away with. Maybe not 16, I think. Oh no, I did do 16, yeah, and so on. And there again, just another way of representing the same piece of information. But you can see the principle of getting a lot in a small area. It's amazing what you can actually grow in just 1 square foot. You really can get a lot of stuff out there. I use these things, just the bamboo stakes, but they deteriorate over time, it seems. And also I used cable ties there, which they deteriorate over time as well, only a few months generally, and they fall to bits. So I'm not going to do that anymore. But that's us getting ready to plant things out, or at least getting ready. Now, there's an example of 1 square meter plus 50 millimeters planted to that sort of, so they're broccoli, not broccoli, sorry, they're kale. This down here on the left is some sort of bok choy, pak choy, similar to that, but it's a different version of it. And this is the Chinese cabbage. I think they've got another name for that. But you can squeeze it all in there, and it worked really well. And that is much more than we could eat. We were sharing it with people, taking it along to church every week. And this is a point to mention too. Why, and I'm mindful of time. Why do I think that God decided? He decided which house we went into. He decided where the sun was going to be, and so on and so forth. And I've mentioned this before to people. It's out the front. Our garden is out the front. When you go out there, it's almost every time I go out there to tend the garden, someone walks past and engages to some extent. And so I've met lots and lots of people. One person had been waiting 2 years to see me because she drops the kid off at school and she's right into gardening, and they're going to buy a block in Margaret River and so on and so forth. So there's all this interaction with people, and we get to share. There's a lady from where's Lamb from? Yeah, I realise that, but what originally?
Oh, China.
From China. She's got a little dog called Suki, a real cute little dog who likes us but barks at everyone else. And she, because of her background, these are the vegetables that she knew, and you can still buy in the shop, but it's nothing compared to, hey Lamb, have some of these, some of the Asian greens, which seem to be the best thing to grow, frankly. They're a lot more hardy, I notice. They don't bolt as readily and so on. It's certainly not the Chinese cabbage and so on. And so, yeah, we're able to share with the people and to engage on that. And she, and loves it, just brings joy to people, and that's a great joy that I get out of this gardening, which I think many of us do. And there we are. It's gone along a little bit more, and from an aerial view and so on. And this is not this year, or even it was last year, I think, though. It was, yeah. Let's just have a look. When was it? No, it was the year before, I think. So you can see where you can put quite a variety of things. You can put them quite tightly spaced. I won't describe what they are, but you can also see the pests here too. And they're
Mhm.
beetroot. They grow quite well in this. Did you say something, Jeremy?
No, I'm just admiring it.
Yeah, look, it was really great. I say was in the past context. They're the trellises. I built them myself. And I spent 3 weeks doing those, 4 of them. That's pretty time inefficient, but I really enjoyed it because I don't get to work with metal. You know, I was grinding and no welding. I don't have a welder, but fashioned it and worked it out. It was just something really good to do. Um, yeah, and this was last year. So this is Clint. We all know Clint and Kylie and their family. This is from some I'm getting mental blanks, darling. Some corn that we used, and Joe dutifully saved the seeds, and they're growing beautifully there. Again, really quite tight. I don't think he'll do it as quiet next time, tight rather. And again, we've got some various other things there you can see. Now, this is trying to keep track of things. It's pretty complicated. I haven't maintained it completely, but it's on an Excel spreadsheet. Again, for the crop rotation. I'm beginning to know why people do broad acre now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think what I'm going to do, instead of doing individual, I know there's disease and stuff like that, but I might start doing it perhaps one big thing at a time, because it's quite a thing to track it and so on, and ends up, preventing me from doing stuff because I've got to refer back to it. But yeah, it's quite onerous and so on. So Mel's mix is critical. So it's 1/3 compost, 1/3 peat moss, but they use koi now. You can't get peat moss, and it's not very sound for the environment to be using real peat moss, and 1/3 coarse vermiculite. Um, and there's a Green Life soil company. You can buy what they call wicking bed mix now, but Mel's mix. They do cocoa peat, charcoal, compost, vermiculite, and they add in some trace elements and boost it with the nitrogen content. I think that might be some. They use some manures and for that, and that's what I've put in my garden bed because I couldn't be making all that stuff the way they show you to do it in the book. And yeah, that's that spot, Jeremy. That's the spot that you saw the sunlight. And you know what? You're quite right to identify that. Those IBCs I was either going to give away or throw out, but I didn't. I just went, oh, you know what? I think I might just put them back there. And I think it's probably the best spot in the whole property. So it's interesting, and there's a life lesson in there. The things you think that are the right way to go or the wrong way to go or whatever, if you allow God to influence your thinking or whatever, it might turn out to be the biggest blessing, to be perfectly honest. I've told all this stuff already. Now, we've moved on from here too, because I thought, okay, how am I going to protect this stuff? If you just leave it out in the sun in the hills here, it's going to just get fried. So there's my original plan, if you like, a 4.9 by 5.7 meter setup. And so what it's going to be is the shade cloth, and also be able to rig up netting and things like that, because birds like to get in there. And one of the reasons for building raised beds here is that you can see there, you can't quite see, that's just the hole that you dig. How long would it take you to dig that, Jeremy, with a spade or, with a shovel?
I've got pretty strong tongans, so they did that in minutes.
Okay, well, here you
You're in
wouldn't.
the hills.
I'm in the hills, exactly. And you know what I'm going to say, don't you?
It's hard.
It's hard, yep. Look at the soil. That's the soil. What's underneath it?
Yeah, bauxite.
No, and you know what? It's not loose. Yeah, it is bauxite. That is solid laterite, or coffee rock, often they call it. That is solid rock.
That's what it
And
is.
so I had to, sorry,
You need a jackhammer for that stuff,
I
just
needed
about.
a jackhammer. I had a jackhammer that I was using up because this was before all these things have gone in stages. I was using that to do a fence. So I bought the cheaper one, which I shouldn't do, for $250. And I started doing this. And that is, you can see that. So it's about 700 millimeters deep, but we've only got, what is that? Say 750 to 450. So we've got 300. That's actually the deepest one, or one of the deeper ones. Yeah, so we've got about 500 millimeters, maybe a bit less on that one, of solid rock to retrofit this. Now, the reason why it was this size is that's the maximum size I had available to me. It's pretty much up against the fence line. It's about 500 millimeters space from the fence that's up behind us there, and so on. So I was trying to put a jackhammer to dig it as deep as I could up against these things with a fence on this side. It was up here and so on. So it was quite the task. So each one took about a day to do. Again, my beautiful neighbour, his mum, in fact, had a jackhammer that had more cushioning in it. That was the difference in price, 250 versus 450. And so I used theirs, which basically saved my tendons and avoided carpal tunnel syndrome and so on. And so that was the end result. So with the netting and with the shade cloth on the top, I already had some shade cloth from before. And that's what you saw. All that was under that cover before. So it's very effective, works really well. Yeah. And that's inside a bit of a panoramic view, if you like, at one stage. This was earlier than the one I showed you with Clint's, their little bantam ones. This is zucchini. I didn't grow that a second year. It was just troublesome from a disease perspective, which comes to life lessons. But it grew some really good egg fruit. So yeah, and they're like $2 each. So there's a little bit of offset. And there was one of the here's my successes, if you like. Now again, we've pretty much run out of time, but people can just fast forward when they watch the I guess the rest of it. So that's a chogia, I think. Oh no, beetroot. Oh no, that's a chogia, sorry, different one. And that was some of the harvest. That was our first carrot. There's some of the cucumbers went beautifully in our second season. Some cherry tomatoes, which seem to be the ones that seem to avoid the disease. I don't know if that's something that's consistent. But yeah, we got lots of cucumbers. So on basically one bush grew well. And then later on another one did, but that was just more than we could eat. But again, we never really got many of these. They look beautiful, don't they? But they end up with the blossom end rot, which again is probably a problem with wicking beds, I think, is actually getting the soil. Sorry?
It's a calcium issue.
Exactly, but is it calcium being absorbed from the soil? Because I felt that had the right nutrients in there. And again, then here's a question for you. How would you do it with a wicking bed to make sure the calcium gets available to the plant?
You'd have to feed the calcium from the top. So the thing about calcium's not very mobile in the plant or in the soil. So you have to feed calcium in a form that is available. So, you can get some lime, some very fine ground lime, and then you've got to add something like citric acid to it in a slurry, and that sort of has a chemical reaction and makes it plant available. So
right, and
we can talk about that at growth and maybe another
that would be really good. I was going to wait till then actually, but I sort of couldn't help myself when you mentioned the solution. You're right, and so there was a problem there because they'd be awesome tomatoes, but nevertheless, that's what happened. Yeah. Yes, Benji.
It could also be boron, because boron facilitates the transport of the uptake of calcium. So it's either calcium or boron.
Yeah, I worked on the theory that the soil that I bought would have had everything in there, which they've used. So yeah, that was the theory on which I worked. But yeah, I did actually I put some dolomite on it and stuff like that, I think. But yeah, I'll look at other solutions, as you say, Jeremy. That's good. There's some capsicums, and these are all the good ones. There's me, happy boy. That was the first of the crop, I think. Got some corn, as you can see. That was the cucumber plant that had all these on. Look at them. I mean, they just runs amok. It's amazing.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that's right. This is a story to go. Again, we've run out of time, but I'm going to tell the story. That was that garlic you saw there, right? And so I was out there doing something, and a guy called Steve Paxman, if you know him, he lives up the road, came along with such a random thing. Joe used to be the CHEP trainer for the state. If you know what that is, that's for the cooking demos, if you like, to do formal training to make sure it's all done right. His wife had done the training, and he was dropping off the material some years later. What was it, 5 years later, 3 years later, something like that. And he says, you got to pull your garlic. Oh, what do you mean, Steve? Well, it's time to pull it. Okay, that's the way he talks, I should say. He's very direct, and he's great. Anyway, so I pulled this thing up, and as you can see there, if you've grown garlic before, you can notice this. They're starting to split or heading towards splitting. And I reckon that might have lasted another week. But God sent Steve along to tell me to pull the garlic. And I've shared that with other people too. It's just one of those things you don't know until it's too late. And unless you've got someone on the ground to see this stuff, you got no idea. But how for me, that was just a miracle. Yeah, not in its consequence, but in its knowledge and letting me know that God's there and he'll just do this stuff, all the time, really. Anyway, the blossom end rot. I presume that's what it is, there, Jeremy.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, and look what we've got here. What do we got there?
Right.
What's not right here?
Well, that could be. It's not powdery mildew. That's
Isn't it?
Powdery mildew is more of a white, cloudy stuff. That could be any bacterial
thing.
disease.
Okay, I treat it as powdery mildew. Put the fungicides.
Did it work?
Not really.
No.
Thought it did, but it didn't just get rid of it. But yeah, that's what I thought it was. And look at this. And you think, oh, what would have caused that?
Overwatering.
Overwatering. But you know what I did? It was pretty dry. So what I did is I put a bit of water on it, not too much, I didn't think. That was all right. But what happened the next day?
Yeah.
Or that
bang.
day? Big downpour. We got how many millimeters in January in Perth?
Yeah.
It was a genuine downpour. What was it? 70 millimeters. It was something huge. And that's what
the
resulted.
best way to avoid splitting your melons and things is before a downpour is to water heavily. So the ground
to lead up to it.
Yeah, the ground's already saturated.
Right, okay.
Mm.
Oh, and continue with that? Because these were mature at this point. They're pretty much, they were ripe, I think.
The plants will already take up what they can, so the rain won't affect them. It's just something we've tried with cherries, because cherries split, but if you saturate the ground before rain event, yeah, they tend to not split. So
wouldn't that be just thinking that through? Is that not the same? Or
it should be the same principle. The saturated soil, they're not getting a sudden burst.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, so do it slowly. So do it over time.
Build it up, I suppose. Okay. If you know rain's coming. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. In this case, no.
Okay. So with rain, there's an atmospheric reaction as well. It's not just.
Okay.
Think about rain. It's full of nitrogen and it's full of oxygen. So the plants uptake like really quick, whereas irrigated water, you're probably on town water, scheme water. Is that right?
Yeah. I try and avoid it.
Dead water. It's just like it's full of chlorine and fluoride and other things. So it's dead water. Whereas rainwater is living. It's just amazing stuff. So you get a much greater plant reaction, uptake.
And you see that, don't you? You just see it.
Absolutely. You see that. That's what you see.
Yeah. So that was a disappointment there. What I should have done is actually harvested that because they're ripe. I didn't think they were ripe. I just went, yeah, whatever. I had a bit of one of them and went, hang on. But before I could get to it, the hired help, we got some people in from New Guinea. We had them harvesting, which we know is really important in our economy and so on. You can see there.
She's from New Guinea.
Hey?
She's from New Guinea.
Well, what do you reckon? Have a close look. It's my dear wife, Jo. But she's wearing that because it's the middle of summer, mind you. And so, again, a dear friend, Margaret, had given that to her. And so I thought this was there she is with the knife, not with the traditional knives and so on, but basically getting rid of these seeds so we can mulch it up and put it with the compost, because I didn't really want everything with the seeds sprouting and so on. But I just thought I'd put that in there for a bit of fun, I guess. But hey, look, there's a positive. We want those in the garden, don't we, Jeremy?
What are we looking at?
See? Sorry?
What are we looking at?
We're looking at that.
Oh, the ladybird down there.
Depends which
type it is.
Sorry?
Depends which type it is. If it's a 26 spot one, you don't want them because they'll eat the plants.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no,
there's
different types, and that's one ladybird you don't want. The others you do.
Is that a bad one?
I think it is.
Oh, wow, that's good. I'll have to show this to you. But he's all right.
That's right. So healthy sign, good sign.
That's what I was thinking. I haven't seen it more recently. He's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. That didn't work so well, but I won't go into that as to why. That's fertilization. This one, a life lesson thing, if you like. We're going to put that. Sorry?
That's mites.
It is. Thank you. So you know your stuff, because I've got a picture there, which if you zoom it up, I can't really zoom it on this sort of thing, but you can sort of see them there if you have a really close look. But that plant, the neighbour says, throw it out. But I didn't. I did treat it with an organic, which is the, I think it was Castile soap at the time, or the Ag soap or whatever. Yeah, it did. It helped, and it was an abundant harvest on that one later. Oh, look at the current set aside to play with us. Yeah, it doesn't look too good, does it? This is a game I work at, but it's winter now. We're pulling all that stuff out. That's what it looks like now, everybody. We've got some things in place, some of those things, the kale's growing, but this is weeds. And you can see that that's to do with it's not looking too good, is it? And it's sort of
Looks like
sad. Whoops, sorry.
garden.
What's that?
Like everyone else's garden.
Like everyone else's garden. This is the thing. So that's the result of, yeah, too little time, to be honest. And perhaps excuse, and also mentally, you know, wanting to do it but not quite getting there and so on, you know. There's some that have been prepared, ready for and I have planted some the other day, you know, just got out there and just put some in there. Because I wanted to weed first and so on. But yeah, the reality is, yeah, that's what can happen. The things of life can overwhelm, and that's basically what happened from a time perspective, literally not having enough time, and also from wanting to set that time aside and do it properly and not doing it. So yeah, but hey, that's a harvest as well, and the calendula, which is a healing sort of plant and so on, and yeah, and even the finished product, which is what's made from the calendula after it's been used and so on. And this is what I want to end on, because you know what? That's a sign from God. That's a sign from God. In all the ups and downs and all that kind of stuff, God is never far away. The rain shows us that God exists, and I firmly believe that. And you got to be out in the garden to see that very often too, don't you? And so I just thought it was a beautiful rainbow in there. That's where I'm at. Well, any questions? No questions. That's good.
You were very thorough, and I
Very
really
thorough.
appreciate the journey you took us. And what was really good about that, you didn't just show us, you know, sort of the garden beds and the construction, but you actually showed us that they can work.
Mm.
And that was, you had some pretty good results there. And I take it that was last summer, was it? Pretty
It was a combo of last summer and the summer
2
before.
years.
It's
Yep.
been
Okay.
about 18 months, I think. I mean, the whole journey's been quite a long time actually, but that was pretty much left for a very long time.
Saw the journey, and that was really cool that
Mm.
everyone could see the journey, because everyone else will be on some journey. A lot of people will be starting and asking questions, and wondering. And I think what you've showed us is that that is very doable. There is a bit of outlay. I know someone that's done quite an extensive wicking bed with using the IBCs.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah, down in Manjimup very successfully too. So
right.
you don't have to spend a lot of money. You've
Mm.
been fortunate. You're obviously very well paid, and that's great.
No, you mentioned it involved someone. Joe's dad had to die.
Oh,
Actually. So
okay.
that was
Well, let's
an
not
inheritance. Yeah,
pray for that.
there's a lot of money there. Sorry.
You didn't. Oh, okay. Well, I won't go there. All right.
Oh, you can. It's the problem is it's live. We'll do it when we're person to person. The black humor can be helpful.
Yeah. So Benji's just made a comment talking about the calcium, that to start, if you put calcium on the beds now and the rain and so forth, that helps condition the soil ready for the next crop. So
Right.
that's good advice. And boron does drive calcium. So the boron's cheap. You know, that's that borax you can buy, or
Oh yeah.
it's not, you don't need much. A very, very small amount of boron, but it is important.
Right.
Very, very small. But I don't think we've got any questions at the moment. Is there
No, that's
anyone?
cool.
The YouTubers can't ask their questions, but they'll certainly be watching.
We had a soil test on our soil here, and we found out that we were deficient with calcium and boron. So the soil test was done by someone over east by Ian Moss, and he gave the recommendation. So we just it wasn't a lot of amendments to do, because we just treated 1/10 of an acre, and the amendments were just little. I mean, a few handful of calcium, and then borax and other trace elements, and to to amend the soil so that it has the right amount of calcium and boron and other nutrients. Yeah, so that's what we did with our soil here.
Mm.
Calcium is a really important element, really, really important because they're very important for cell division. Really, really important in the plant. Also, insects. If the calcium levels are high in the plant, then insects, they cannot actually digest lysine, which is part calcium is important in that production. And if they can't eat lysine, they can't eat your plants.
Yeah, I've noticed what's interesting is on that point, I had some slugs on the kale and I killed them. I went out there one night for some reason. And I've noticed that they really haven't touched them. There's some leaves that are gone, but not. And I was thinking that's explaining it, I think, because I know the healthy plant is a lot more resistant to even the physical damage of pests and so on. And I'm thinking surely they would have stripped this, but they haven't. I'm guessing that they're healthy kale. Yeah.
Snails and slugs are fairly indiscriminate, so it's pretty hard to explain why they didn't eat it.
Oh,
We've got a question from Vern and Mel. What weeding strategies did you use?
Well, initially you didn't have to worry about weeds because it was brand new soil. So that's the good thing. I just pull it out and look, it's easy to weed with that particular medium. It just comes straight out. There's no effort involved really, but you want to preserve that. You want look, there's people that talk about doing the cover crops and things like that, and leaving things in situ. I don't know how you can manage that and put seeds in there. I know you could do it with seedlings. I don't know if you want to comment on that, Jeremy, but yeah, basically pulling it out and tapping the soil away, and then even then putting that weed into the compost. So you're not losing it from the system. You might be losing a bit as you take it out, but you're going to end up with it coming back at some point. That's my comment on that. Yeah.
Yep. That's about all you can do. And having that surface mulch on there also helps because seeds to germinate need light. And if you've got a bit of surface mulch on there, they'll stop those weeds germinating. So that's good there. We've got a comment there, copper sulfate spray or instant coffee spray.
What's that for the blossom?
For the slugs and snails. So yes, copper sulfate's very effective on slugs and snails. The problem with copper sulfate is that you can get copper toxicity in your soil. So you've got to be really careful about how much you use. A little bit of copper's not bad. So it's actually a good thing, but yeah, you've got to be really careful with copper sulfate. But coffee spray, I didn't know that, or instant coffee spray. You might have to buy some coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for that. That's a good comment.
Thanks,
Slugs are the bane of everyone's gardening life.
Yeah, I think exclusion is the go in this small scale stuff. So I don't know if I really showed that, but I put the veggie netting on it, and yeah,
Yep.
veggie netting tends to exclude stuff. Not everything. Sometimes things do get in there, but yeah, certainly slugs and that can stop that from getting in.
Now, I'm fairly practical and I don't like to put any sprays or chemicals on my plants, but I do use snail pellets around the pathways where there's no food because I'm not going to eat that area. And I might even use Roundup on my paths too, but don't tell anyone, all right?
Well, there's also the organic. It's a very high iron content. The organic snail pellets aren't there. Don't work?
I don't think they work very well. And like I said, they are iron. It's iron chelate, and you're going to end up too much iron. We've already got iron issues. So they don't really work very well.
Yeah, I've used it. I've used a bit, and I just go exclusions to go. And these are for grubs and things too, for grubs and that get in there, cabbage moths and all that sort of stuff. All right.
Right, I think we haven't had any more comments.
I have a question, Brett.
Yeah.
With that in bed that you have, does it require gravels on the one that's more expensive one, or
okay.
does it require gravel at the bottom for the wall? or no?
No, it's so that one, the food cube is, I'll just get it back there if I can. Probably
Yeah,
find
yeah.
different ways of doing this. No, it's just the whole thing is what you see. It's all made out of plastic, basically. So it has those boy, I'm gonna get back to this thing.
So how does the capillary action takes place without
What it
the
does,
butter
you know,
and the
those,
geotext?
yeah, no, you don't use the geotextile stuff or anything. What you
Ah,
do
yeah.
is you use, all right, okay, there's a better one somewhere along the line here. Basically you've got those, okay, oh, there we go. So can you see there? Can you see the growing medium there, or perlite or vermiculite or whatever you're going to use there? They've
Ah, yeah.
got
Mm.
the these things. So these little cones, they've got a bottom on them. They fit into the top of this thing. So that square acts as geotextile fabric to a point. This has holes in it. These little cones
Mm.
have holes in it. And then what happens is there are what, 4 to each of these squares, and you've got 4 squares in each. So there's 16 of these that go right into the water, and they fill up with water. And then the capillary, actually, the water comes up to whatever level it is, but that's about, I think, where they're recommending it. And then it flows up through here using the capillary action with the soil on here and a gap there. They also talk about aerating the soil and stuff like, or the growing medium as well as being a benefit. And so that's part of the thinking on that. And then yeah, it comes up there. So this is all just one thing. There's nothing, it's a whole kit. Nothing more than the growing medium is required in the water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and it's really quite good. There's some other innovations.
So
For instance, you can buy,
so
yeah, you
that's
can buy also,
filled with vermiculite.
no, well, you could fill that. I've just filled it as they've said, which is either a mixture, so Mel's mix, if you like, or whatever version of that you want to do. But it's got to have the koi in it, and it's got to have the vermiculite, I think, too, to allow this process to occur. And obviously, the compost would also provide some measure of wicking, I guess. But it's I guess, to balance all that up to allow it to wick, but also to allow the soil to have the right properties, the best properties for growing in that. And Jeremy could probably talk about that in detail, but essentially that's my sort of thinking. If you put just sand in there, now I originally had just sand in the original ones that had the gravel at the bottom. They worked fine. They seem to work fine, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, this is just, I was just wanting to optimize everything. But yeah, look, whether that would work with these, I suspect it probably wouldn't. But if you did, and I think the sand would come through those holes. They're reasonable size, which is designed to have a potting mix style consistency. But you could probably put geotextile on there if you wanted to use sand, but then use this as part of the process. But I think it would interfere. You'd have to get quite complicated. This seems to work quite well for us, and also when you see people that are growing it on their on their Facebook and so on. Yeah.
Thanks.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yep. And look, and we can see the system works. I think one of the biggest inhibitors here is probably the initial cost outlay.
Yes.
And that's before you've even got your soil in there, which is
This.
another significant cost also with your amendments.
Yeah, I can't remember what it cost us. It was 260 per cubic meter or something. Each of these is supposed to take a third of a cubic meter. I don't think they quite do, because if you think it's a square meter plus the 50 mil as well as the 300 plus, it's about 350, I think, something like that. That's available to the soil, but yeah, for the growing medium. So yeah, it was a lot of money. As I say, it was a lot of money, and we needed that bulk money that was available. Yeah, it can pay for itself, but it'd take a few years.
I don't think it would.
Probably
No,
not.
I'm serious. I'm
Yeah.
serious. I don't think it would. You get a bit of lettuce and a bit of carrots and stuff, and I do the sums in my own garden, and I don't think I save an awful lot of money. I mean,
No.
my grocery bills are very minimal,
Mm.
just from my veggie garden, but there are costs involved. by the
Definitely.
time you buy your fertilizers, your amendments, a bit of manure, and a few other bits and pieces, I get a lot from work for nothing. That's the stuff
Yeah.
I use. So
Yeah.
growing food, you can't, you're not going to save a lot of money, but you're probably going to save your life in the end of the day.
Oh, that's right. And there's all these, yeah, soft, but they're actually, these seemingly incidental things. And one of the things that the most important thing that sustained me in this is the Cultivate conference that we went over there, and it was actually a text from it's Genesis 3:17, and the text reads, "Then to Adam he said, because you have heeded the voice of your wife and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life." So one of the speakers there talked about how the curse was there, but it's turned around in reality, so the curse is there to benefit us. And that's the truth. I can tell you that's the truth. It's a great joy to go out there, particularly in this style. It's not the big effort, like digging up the soil and, trying to aerate it and all that kind of stuff. You can actually go out there, do some weeding. It's really quite quick to weed in reality if you maintain it. And putting the seeds in and watching them grow and the miracle that is. I mean, it's just God speaking to you all the time. The birds at our place, certainly, there's lots of birds around. The sunshine, the whole range of things, just works so well, and I can just see why God did it.
And then what I just probably we should start winding up, but
I'd say so. Yeah.
one thing I really did love when you shared about, the neighbours dropping by and connecting with the neighbours, because it's so true. A lot of people are interested in gardening, and you might you want a point of interest to connect with your neighbours. Gardening is it. Sharing produce is it. It's easy. It's non-confrontational. It's a blessing. It's a conversation starter. People love looking at gardens.
Yep.
When people come to my house, they say, "Can we have a look at your garden?" Everyone wants to look at the garden. So, that's awesome. And you got it out the front, as a God thing. That's a God thing. So yeah, I don't have neighbours, and I live where no one can find me. That's intentional. So yeah, I've got to take food to them.
Yeah, but that's just another way. It's the produce, isn't it? You better
Yes.
have that opportunity to bless them with that.
Absolutely. No, it's really good. Great story. Nice and thorough. There's a lot of information there. I think you answered a lot of questions. I was challenged on a few things, and I've seen a few things that I didn't know, so well done. And yeah, that's really good. So hopefully anyone who's thinking about this has now got some information and a good reference. I appreciate your time that you put into the presentation. It's been great to see your journey, and the journey will continue.
Yes.
And I'd encourage you to make time. That's hard, isn't it? I'm time poor too, but just got to make time. So it's too important. It is life or death now. We're getting to a point in Earth's history where it's going to be critical. Everything you've learned, it's time to apply.
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah, I think you're quite right.
You can't muck around anymore. Who knows when the crisis is coming? So
yeah,
we're getting some thank yous from everyone, Brett. Thanks everyone for being with us tonight. Yeah, Benji's just saying that's precious time you spend in the garden. Best place to meditate and relax and de-stress. I agree with that. God has given us this. It is a blessing. And my mission is to encourage as many people as possible to do it, to inspire, and also to make it doable, because a lot of people try gardening and have many fails and they give up. So we've just got to try and simplify it as much as possible. So we've got lots of exciting stuff to share at Growth this year. So it's only a week away. I'm quite excited, and let's hope we see as many people there as can make it. It'd be great.
I'm looking forward to it, Jeremy.
All right. So have you got any final remarks, or should we close in prayer?
No, I'm looking forward to the Growth Conference. Yeah, it's starting Friday, isn't it?
Friday, late in the afternoon, evening. It'd be good. All right, Benji's just got something to share with us here. Says, when I was in Perth, I also had wicking bed because full of concrete around us. Yeah, so that's a really good point. Really good point. When you got hostile conditions, when you just got beach sand or concrete, yeah, it's an instant garden. Very good. Thanks, Benji. And everyone, let's close in prayer. Let's just bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for Brett and his willingness to share, his enthusiasm, and just the journey he's been on. We can see he's learned a lot, and that's so it's wonderful information that we've now been able to share with, and we've got a resource for others to get to. So yeah, just as also we approach a conference coming up at the end of this week, we're looking forward to it. Pray that you bless our plans and our preparation, and Rod and Desley as they come over too. Just be with them and their preparation. They're busy people, but we thank you that they're committed. And we just bless everyone, Lord. Bless everyone who wants to get out in their garden, and just give us that desire. Spring fever may it affect us all. And give us those green thumbs, Lord, and help us to learn from our mistakes, not to get discouraged, to put everything into practice, and just please bless our efforts, Lord, because we do it because we know it's good, and it is a blessing, and just may we just encourage and inspire others. So thank you for being with us tonight. Bless us all as we go into a new week. We pray in your holy name.